This is Gavin and Caleb's storybook on World War II. In 1919, World War I officially ended with the Treaty of Versailles. This treaty created many problems in Europe. The terms of this treaty were Germany had to pay for all the damages. They lost land to France, Belgium, Denmark, Poland, and the League of Nations. Austria was forbidden to unite with Germany. The League of Nations was set up. Germany's colonies were taken by the League of Nations. Germany had to keep troops out of the Rhineland. Germany couldn't build submarines, planes, or tanks. Germany had to cut their army to 100,000 men. The War Guilt Clause stated that Germany had to accept blame for starting World War I. Only 6 battleships were allowed in Germany's navy. All land taken from Russia had to be given back, and the western area became Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Germany was not allowed to have an air force. Germany tried to pay back the reparations from World War I, but they couldn't afford it. In 1922, French invaded the Ruhr, and in the 1920s, the Allies reduced reparations, and in 1933, Germany refused to pay reparations anymore, and the Allies didn't do anything to stop them. Basically, the Allies wanted to bankrupt Germany because they needed the reparations from World War I. The U.S. took a neutral diplomatic position on this. Several totalitarian governments arose in Europe and Asia because of economic depression worldwide and a strict Treaty of Versailles. Joseph Stalin was the dictator of the USSR. The USSR was the second largest industrial power in the world in the 1930s. He ordered the roundup and murder of 8 to 13 million Soviets for his purges. Benito Mussolini was the dictator of Italy. He was a part of the Fascist Party. Fascism places the interests of the state over those of the people. In 1922, Mussolini seized power. Many supported him because he was an anti-communist. Adolf Hitler was the Chancellor of Germany. In 1919, he joined the National Socialist Workers' Party, otherwise known as the Nazis. He wrote Mein Kampf, and this outlined many of the Nazi beliefs. Some of these beliefs were that German-speaking peoples were to be built into a German empire. There was to be an Aryan race, and there was to be enough living space for the German people. In 1933, Hitler was elected Chancellor of Germany. Hideki Tojo was a military leader in Japan and a dictator. In 1931, he was in charge of conquering Manchuria. The League of Nations condemned Japan, but when this happened, Japan just left the League. Francisco Franco was the dictator of Spain. He was the longest ruling dictator in European history. And during World War II, Spain remained neutral, but Franco let Spanish soldiers volunteer to fight in Germany in the German army against the USSR. Overall, Spain leaned towards the Axis powers. In 1939, World War II began with Germany's invasion of Poland. The Axis powers consisted of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Blitzkrieg means lightning war. The Axis conquest in Europe conquered Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, France, and Denmark, all in the 1940s. The Battle of Britain occurred in British airspace, and this was between the Royal Air Force and the German Luftwaffe. It resulted in a British victory, and the battle lasted from July 10th, 1940 to October 31st, 1940. World War II was fought on many fronts. Operation Torch was the Allied invasion of North Africa in November 1942. After they invaded North Africa and conquered them, the Allies could then attack Sicily and come through Italy through the belly of Europe. Operation Barbarossa was when Germany invaded the USSR on June 22, 1941. This was the largest invasion in the history of warfare, and it resulted in a failure for the British, or for the Germans. America's first response to war was to remain neutral. FDR was the president of the U.S. during this. The Lend-Lease Act authorized the transfer of military materials to Britain with the understanding that they would ultimately be paid for or returned if they were not destroyed. This was hard for the U.S. because they wanted to trade, but they wanted to also remain neutral during the war. The war in Asia began with Japan's invasion of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. But before this, Japan got Manchuria in 1931, Peking, Shanghai, and Nanking in 1937. Japan enjoyed military superiority over China. Like I said earlier, the Prime Minister of Japan was General Hideki Tojo, and the person that planned Pearl Harbor was Admiral Izukuru Yamamoto, and he was the Minister of the Navy. Pearl Harbor was a day that will live in infamy. Around 2,000 Americans were killed during the attack, and more than half of the U.S. Pacific Fleet was destroyed. This attack was a surprise because we expected an attack in the Philippines, and we thought the planes were our own. After Pearl Harbor, Japan attacked Malaya, the Philippines, Thailand, Burma, the Aleutian Islands, and Midway.